This is Rob Tebbutt for Boxing Social in association with Betfred. Delighted to be joined by Dave Coldwell. We're here in sort of sunny old Manchester, quite sunny for Manchester. How are you, Dave?
I'm all right, thank you. It's not often it's sunny in Manchester, and looking out, it's actually grey, so I don't know where you're getting sunny Manchester from.
It was a lot better than it was yesterday. Yesterday was absolutely hammering it down. But yeah, how are you? It's been a while since I've seen you. How are you keeping?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, really good. I'm enjoying the work in the gym. Things are getting slightly back to normal. We've got a big bright light at the end of this long tunnel. So yeah, I'm happy right now, thanks.
Good, nice to hear. Yeah, we are sort of coming to the end, touch wood. No more surprises down the line, hopefully. No more bumps in the road left. Before we talk about Lerrone Richards, who of course boxes for the European title this weekend, let's talk about young Hopey Price, who was just in here. He's just gone off to set up his TikTok account. How is young Hopey? How's he getting on?
Do you know what? Fantastic, brilliant. I brought him along here because I don't have any assistants, so the spaces that I've got, I've just used one for Hopey, let him soak up the atmosphere, let him just see again, just be comfortable and be around people, and you know, obviously, and to be able to train him at the same time. He's ready to go whenever Eddie says there's a date. You know, we was told to get ready for May. That didn't work out, but he's ready. So you know, just keep ticking over. And it's like last night, I had dinner with Virgil, on I? You know, just sat listening, talking to him. Hope he's there, listening, talking to him, and you know, picking up education and things like that are priceless for a young prospect. So already that's the value of him tagging along and, you know, not just staying at home and, you know, doing what he normally does and taking himself out, even though we know that bubbles aren't the most exciting of things, but there's those little snippets of gold that you can pick up and add to your experience, and, you know, that's what he's doing.
It's interesting you'd say that. It's something that we've heard, well, I've heard on numerous instances. Andy Lee said the same thing about he used to go around with Emmanuel Stewart to all of the HBO shows, and he said that if you could just pick up a little snippet, then that could potentially help him down the line. I know Brendan, of course, used to do it with Nassim Hamid and all of the other guys in the Ingle gym. Is that something that you've kind of taken from them and like to implement with the guys in your stable? Yeah,
it's what I like them to educate themselves, because they have to be the most, you know, most well-rounded individuals, but also in that ring they have to be educated. They have to know every scenario that might crop up in the ring. They have to be able to get comfortable with surroundings, because every fight camp, every bubble, every fight week is always different. Every individual you come across in boxing can be different. You can have, you know, laid-back characters. You can have the ones that will kick off, you know, and spark up, and then just being around people that are experienced in the game, just seeing how they handle things and just listening and just picking up things. Like I said, you can pick up little gems, and without even looking for it, it just slaps you straight in the face. And it's part of the experience that builds the fighter as he goes on, becomes, you know, a big name fighter himself.
With Hopey, we've spoken numerous instances in the past about developing in the gym and how important it is to keep developing in the gym. You mentioned him going to spar Barry, Kid Galahad. Talk to me about any updates or anything that you've been doing with him in the gym with regards to sharpening him up in sparring.
We're just constantly looking to evolve, constantly looking to adapt to his game, the experience he's getting. Obviously, he's got in-house sparring with Jordan Gill, which is fantastic. Those two bounce off each other brilliantly. Jordan's really took him up under his wing. So that's quality sparring. But then we do a lot of work with Leon Woodstock. Leon Woodstock's strong super featherweight. Leon really holds Hopey in high esteem. His coach does. The work that we get there is invaluable. He's, you know, in the last few weeks he sparred, obviously with Leon. He sparred with Akib Fiaz, again super featherweight. He sparred with Barry. Over the last, you know, I hope it was since before Hopey's debut, would go down a little bit. Then for his next fight, go down a little bit for a couple of weeks at a time. Whenever we can get that sparring, that is the most priceless sparring he gets, because Barry's world level. But Barry fights in a unique way and a very, very uncomfortable way, and the pressure and you know, physically and mentally that puts on fighters is immense. You know, so when he's sparring and you see the adaptations that Hope is making over the spars, and then you see what he starts doing and what he's picking up, and then he takes it into his other sparring sessions against other people. It's priceless, you know, and that is a massive, massive tool to what I see Hopey as now as a fighter compared to where he was 12 months ago. And that, you know, I'm very, very grateful to Dom, to Barry himself, because that was something that I watched in that gym when Bomber Graham sparring with a young Johnny Nelson, and Johnny Nelson sparring with a young Naz, and people like that. You watch the guys with the experience and with the tricks and the physical advantage that they have over you. You watch them with the young guys, and you see the mental breakdown of the young guys. You see whether the ones that can cope with it, see the ones that can't cope with it, see the ones that don't like being uncomfortable, but you see the ones that handle that and become comfortable being uncomfortable, and you see them progress, and you see those little traits of the experienced fighters invest into the young prospect as they go on in their careers. And it's education. It's not just simply about punching pads, hitting bags, and being fit and doing mad circuits. It's a full-on education that you need in boxing, and the mental education that fighters need around being around people, being around media all the time, being around other fighters, headliners, other prospects, just potential opponents, and then the education that they get in the ring as well. It's a full package that you need to develop with young fighters.
You mentioned Jordan Gill there. Where do we stand with an announcement? Excuse me, I lost my voice a couple of days ago. I'm sure you won't disagree. That's not necessarily a bad thing sometimes. But anyway, Jordan Gill, where are we with regards to him? The fight that keeps being talked about is Isaac Lowe. Is that realistic?
I don't know. We want it. Eddie mentioned it. Eddie said that that would have been a perfect fight for the AJ Fury undercard, because obviously Isaac boxes on Fury's undercards. Jordan's number 4 in the WBA, 13 in the IBF. Isaac's got a WBC ranking and maybe one other, I think. It makes sense. They're both British fighters. It'd be a good fight, and it's a fight that people are messaging Jordan about. People are messaging himself about. Isaac's mentioned it, then he's kind of like squashed it, and then he says he don't need Jordan, and then he puts out a tweet saying that he's ready for anyone, anywhere, anytime. Well, Jordan's there, and it's a fight that people talk about. It's a fight that people will be interested in. Two good fighters, two fighters that have got world title aspirations. We're here and we're up for it. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But we'd like it to happen, and if it doesn't happen, it's because Isaac Lowe and his team look for something else.
How do you rate Isaac Lowe?
Good fighter. He's only getting better. He's only going to get better. He's young. He's hungry. He's in a champion's camp. That rubs off, to an extent. He's now, I think, he's working with Sugar Hill and Andy now, so he's only going to improve. He's going to get better. So, yeah, it's a really good fight. It's just that I think that Jordan Gill's a different level. And we're not afraid to take that fight, and it's a good fight that people will talk about and people will have an interest in, rather than Isaac fighting somebody that people don't know of on a it's what it is. They've got to look after their career and what they think's best for their man. I want to do what's best for my man. But Jordan had a year off. His comeback fight at fight camp was Reece Bellotti, a fight that a lot of people thought Jordan was going to get knocked out in, and then a bit of time out again, and then he's fought Juarez, who's proven at world level. A lot of people thought again, this is a better version of Tinoco. It showed what he'd learned in the Tinoco fight to handle Juarez how he is, and he's not afraid of testing himself. He's in that position now where he's number 4 in WBA. He's got to think of himself as a world champion. It's not, don't think of yourself, I'm going to fight for a world title. You've got to think about yourself as a world champion now, because that fight could happen at any time, and it is just a matter of time. But we would like to fight Isaac Lowe, or we would like to fight for the European title. Jordan chased that. We were chasing that European title for a year. That's a fight that, if Eddie can make, would take that straight away. Isaac Lowe, Gargo, the European champion, any of the guys in a final eliminator that are above him, whatever. Let's see where we can get.
Moving on to this weekend, Lerrone Richards returns to the ring against Giovanni De Carolis, somebody that we know kind of a fair bit about, really. We've seen him around kind of that fringe world level, European level, in numerous instances. What are we expecting to see from Lerrone Richards this weekend?
I'll be honest with you. De Carolis is very strong, very fit, looks powerful, heavy-handed. He's aggressive. He's come in great shape. He's ready to go. He carries plenty of experience. You know, boxed at far higher level than what Lerrone's boxed at. You know, he's a former world champion. He ticks all the boxes for an opponent that you want for your kid who's in his 15th fight. You know, let's remember, Lerrone's a talent. He's British and Commonwealth champion. He was, but he's only had 14 fights. So this is a good opponent for him, and it's a great title, a European title, old school, prestigious title. But I'm looking at De Carolis, I'm looking at Lerrone, and this guy is built perfectly for Lerrone to shine. Perfectly for Lerrone to go out there and show us all what he can do, because he's got talent. My criticism of him in the past has been that he's lazy. Has been that he's too laid back. He's very, very laid back. He's a laid back individual outside the ring, but in the ring you can't be like that to that extent, you know. And what I've been trying to do is when he goes in there and starts getting his time and everything's pulling off. After 3 or 4 rounds of doing the same systematic thing in the ring, people start switching off, and they're like, okay, let's start going through the gears now. That's what we want to put into him, and it's been a process, and it's always going to be a process when you're trying to change somebody's mentality, change somebody's attitude. But do you know what? For the last 3 weeks of sparring now, nailed it. And his desire to do more has increased, and I'm really happy with his ability, and what he's actually doing is great. It's never a case of, oh, you're doing this wrong, you're doing that. It's a case of, it's great, I want more. Great, we'll want more. You know, and that's been the criticism, really. But his mentality is great now. I'm really happy with him. I'm looking forward to him to going out there and flowing. And that's the thing with Lerrone. When he flows, and when he just goes in there and takes the breaks and shackles off himself, he's a talent. He's very, very good. And he's actually got a great personality as well. He's a bit quirky. He is a character. So yeah, it's everything's there for him. He's had the backing off Matchroom and everything since he signed over here. You know, S-Jam with the management there pushing him. Everything's there for him. He's just got to go out there and want to do it in a good fashion, not just go on and get the win.
That's kind of where I was going to go next, really. We'd spoken on numerous instances in the past, and obviously the Timo Lane fight was not a great fight. Timo Lane came in, he looked to survive, make it ugly, and as you say, like, that kind of next level is what we need to see from Lerrone. Is it important that he not only wins this weekend, but really lays down a marker for those bigger fights at 168 pounds?
Yeah, I believe so. But don't get me wrong, he's not a banger. He's not going to go out and be Gerald McClellan, you know. So he's never going to be that kind of fighter. But then there are plenty of world champions that aren't one-punch knockout merchants. But Lerrone actually hits harder than what you think. Because my thing that was infuriating me was he was basically a one-handed fighter. And even in sparring, for the majority of times since I've had him, it's like, he's great, but it's one hand. He's one hand against two hands, you know. Let left hand go. Because every time he lets his left hand go, he gets a reaction. He gets a reaction. He can punch with that left hand. But he hasn't, he's been very reluctant to throw it. Now, as I'm saying, the last 3 weeks, every spar, you're seeing it. He's letting it go. He's been, you know, he's showing more variety. But he's not going to be a dynamite one-punch knockout man. But he can still be an attractive fighter to watch because he's got that flow, he's got that skill, he's got that style. And with a little bit more aggression, a little bit more spite in his punches, then he will get stoppages. And he will be, you know, people will enjoy watching him because he is that good. You know, like when you're saying about Timo Lane, we watched a little bit of I think it was a Matchroom promo, and that they put out yesterday, a really good promo on YouTube on him. And he showed a little clip of Timo Lane, and this is when I was with him, so when he's got him on the ropes, and he fires his shots, but he stays right in front of him. The angles would have created cleaner shots, you know, instead of Timo Lane being able to just cover up. Little things like that, but that's, again, it's out of his comfort zone because he's not used to doing that. You know, even when he's had his title wins before, he's rocked his opponents. You can see it desert him, but it kind of allows them just to gather the thought, gather the senses, and come back into the fight. That's the little bits of differences that needs to be made in him, where he has that little bit more spite about him. And it's getting there. It is getting there. It's not just going to all magically appear. It's a process. Anything like that is a process for fighters.
Okay, before we move on, let's talk about the main event on Saturday night. Joshua Buatsi returns to the ring against Dos Santos. Not somebody I'm massively familiar with, I have to admit. Do we need to see a performance from Joshua Buatsi this weekend? The light heavyweight division domestically has been really thriving in recent times. Lyndon Arthur, Craig Richards gave a very good account of himself against Dimitri Bivol. There's Anthony Yard around. Callum Johnson's now back. Do we need to see a big performance from Joshua Buatsi this weekend?
We do, but if he goes out there and blows his kid out in a round, we don't see anything that we don't know before. Again, it's a process. He's with a new coach. He's with an amazing teacher in Virgil Hunter. So how long has he been training with him? So he'll have picked up things, but it's not going to be the finished article. It's not going to, don't expect to see always massive change. But I'd like to see a couple of little differences for him, for them to build on and to go into the next fight. The problem is that I'm like you, I haven't seen much of him, but what I saw in the workout kind of made me think, oh, this could be quick, which I don't think does Joshua any favours whatsoever. So he might be patient. He might go in there and work on a few things, and then stop him in about 3 or 4. Or he could go out there fast and get rid of him in one. But again, it's a process. But we're kind of like, we know he's got the talent. We know he's a really good prospect. We want to kind of see him in some good fights, even if the domestic fights, even if the good domestic fights, that what you mentioned, great. But faded names, things like that, great. But things need to start moving on. I think. I don't think he's not that young, is he? 28. Okay, so he's 28. So, but with that backing he's got and everything, he can be a real star. He's got great ability. So it is a difficult one because it's with a new coach. It was never going to be against a stiff opponent when you're in with a new coach. You go in there for the first time, new face in front of you, new team, that you've been working, new things that you've been working on in the gym. So it's a process. So maybe he's out on this one and they'll be out quickly. Again, in a obviously a step up fight, a realistic sort of fight.
Yeah, I think I'd actually said the same thing to Josh before he boxed Marko Kalic, where it's a sense of people rate him so much. It's not necessarily a criticism. Well, it is, but it's not a criticism in a sense of being unhappy. You just want to see him tested. You want to see the best of him as a potential prospect.
Sometimes that's a double-edged sword for fighters. They want to be rated. They want to be spoken about and seen as a big prospect. But with that comes the expectation of, you shouldn't be fighting at that level. You should be fighting at this level. Like I said, for what Lerrone's achieved, he's still a novice. He's only had 14 fights. So what you see on Saturday night is still not going to be the finished article. But people then judge that and say, that's it. That's what you are. And they don't give you scope for developing because you've won a British, you've won a Commonwealth, he's got to win the European. And they kind of judge you against the world champions on what you're doing now in your 15th fight. And Buatsi's kind of got that as well. But it's because we have such an expectation of him because he looks so good. Then you think he needs to be fighting better fighters. But then when you look at the mistakes he's been making, then obviously his team, his trainers and people around him that are working on him understand that the mistakes he's making, he's getting away with now. But if he was to make that jump too high right now and too big a jump right now, then those mistakes that he's making could come back and cost him, and that's the thing that when you're developing a fighter and you're bringing a fighter on in comparison to promoting a fighter and building a brand and building a star, it can kind of conflict a little bit sometimes.
Okay, well, before I let you go, just a final word on somebody you know very, very well, who, of course, announced his retirement from the sport this week, Jamie McDonnell. I think it's fair to say one of the most underrated fighters of certainly this generation, if not many a generation. Former world champion, gave you and British boxing fans, and indeed fans of boxing around the world, some great nights. And a happy retirement to Jamie McDonnell. Yeah,
it's been a great career. It's right from the start. There's so many people have played a massive part in him. You look at what Dennis Hobson did with him at the beginning, brought him through, put him a world title shot in his hometown, got him that opportunity there. Then obviously he's moved on. The work that Steffi's done with him, myself. it's been a lot of people. His brother's been a big integral part of that, bouncing off each other. Two massive massive characters. I've had a great run. Some of the most fun years I've had in my career with those two. And Jamie's a fighter that didn't really follow boxing, didn't know who boxers were. He didn't know anybody. I remember we was talking about, I think it was Sugar Ray Leonard was talking about once, and he come into the gym one day and he said, "Hey, I'm watching some of that Sugar Ray Leonard. It's not bad, is it?" I was like, "Mate, there's only one at greatest ever." But he didn't have a clue, that's what it was like. But that worked for him, because he'd go into these big fights and have no fear for anybody, because he didn't even watch him. He wasn't bothered. Leave it up to me to just tell him what he needs to do, work on things. The Kameda fight was just brilliant. The rematch, especially because the rematch, they expected Kameda to turn up and do a job on him. They got Salas as coach, and they were saying, they took him lightly in the first fight, going to baster him in the second fight. They went in the rematch and beat him even better. And, travelling around the world, it didn't finish great, but so often, so many careers don't finish how you want them to finish. But he can look back on his career, have no regrets. He's given a lot of fun to everybody that's been around him, and he's achieved so much in the sport. It's been fantastic for the sport. So I wish him all the best in retirement.
Hear, hear. Well said. And just to echo those, happy retirement to Jamie McDonnell, and congratulations on a brilliant career. Dave Coldwell, always a pleasure catching up with you. It feels like it's been a long time since we have. I'm sure I'll speak to you between now and Saturday/Sunday. But yeah, always a pleasure. Thanks very much for speaking to Boxing Social.
Cheers, mate. Thanks a lot.
Love.